Hey, I'm Dennis. How are y'all doing? Okay. Um, so hey, I've built a bunch of stuff, and I want to tell you about some stuff that we're working on now. But first, let me tell you about how we kind of got here. I think everything that I've ever worked on has started with Harry Potter's Marauders map. And if anyone's ever seen me present, they've seen me present this slide like 10,000 times. And everyone knows what the Marauders map is, right? Anyone know? Yeah, like you open it up, Harry Potter does, he sees where all of his friends are and all the magical items are. And I remember reading this book like 20-something years ago and being like, hey, we need one of these for New York. And so we made one, right? But the only stuff that we had to build with were flip phones. And so we kind of built this thing, we called it Dodgeball. And you would text in with your location, and your location would get rebroadcasted out to all your friends. Like, it was kind of dumb by today's standards, but it worked. And then wherever you texted in, like, your friends showed up, and it felt kind of magical. A couple years later, as the phones got a little bit better, we said, hey, let's do this thing again. And we started another company called Foursquare, and started with the general premise of the Marauders map, like show me where all the stuff is. But then we also added, all these game elements, like points and badges and mayorships and stuff. We built a city guide that learned based on all the places you've taken it. We did all this work around doing like contextual aware notifications. Like, we spent a lot of time at Foursquare building this stuff. So like, whenever you walked into a neighborhood, we tell you where to go. Whenever you walked into a restaurant, we told you what to eat. When your plane landed in the new city, we told you where to go, right? Life logging, heat maps of the real world, all this stuff. And it was all kind of in service of software that makes cities easier to use. Like, this is the stuff that like we really love to build. But this feels like a long time ago, and I haven't seen a lot of people really building stuff in this space. And then the world has also changed a lot since then. And whenever I show the slides, like, yeah, it's changed. Like, there's AI everywhere, right? See those sparkles? Like, the sparkles, that's like the universal symbol for AI. And that's true, right? Like, Gen AI made this amazing image of the people with their squished faces. But like, what I look at is like, everyone's just on their phones all the time, right? Yes, we have Gen AI and it does all this cool stuff, but like, everyone's glued to their phones. And we, as humans, have gotten really good at building addictive technology, like stuff you just sit on the couch and consume and consume and consume, stuff that distracts you from the real world. And like, this isn't the way that we used to do it, right? We used to make stuff that was really light. Like, you build something, use it, you put it back in your pocket, and all of a sudden, like, the world changes around you because you did this one thing, right? We used to call it technology that would facilitate serendipity, or like software for the streets. I thought was like a really good definition for it. And I always think, like, where is that stuff? Who's making that stuff? Where does it look like in 2024? So we're going to make that stuff, right? So we started another company, and it's called Hopscotch, and really excited to show you about some of the stuff we're working on. And we're going to take a couple stabs at building a bunch of stuff that's kind of right like in the middle of like what's recently possible and what's newly ubiquitous, and then taking that stuff and like, how do you bring that stuff into the streets? So when you look at Dodgeball, like the phones were out. Like, it wasn't like they were brand new, but they were newly ubiquitous. And what was kind of the new technology? It's like, yeah, you could text into a piece of software. So we built stuff with that. Foursquare came 2 years after the iPhone, but the iPhone was in the App Store and social media and social networks. Like, that was the stuff that was ubiquitous. People knew how to use these things. And so I look around now, like, what's ubiquitous? What can we do? Like, these are ubiquitous. Airpods, like, everyone's walking around with these things. Why is no one building stuff for it? And what's recently possible is AI. So let's look at like the intersection between these two things and how this stuff comes together. So we got a team that's working on it. It's me. I've done this a couple times. My buddy Max, who I've worked with at Foursquare for about 10 years, OG Foursquare machine learning engineer, and AJ up in the front here, amazing iOS developer from Visco and Rent the Runway, also a Guinness World Record holder, a Smash Brothers champion. You can ask him about that during the break. We're going to make a bunch of stuff. It's all going to be focused on the real world, engaging with it as opposed to distracting with it. And I want to focus on proactive AI. And so what do I mean by proactive AI? Like, yeah, we got AI everywhere, but like Siri and Alexa and OK Google, like, they're all inside the magic lamp, and you have to like say the word to get them to come out. Like, they don't live with us. And so we've kind of been obsessed with this idea of like, well, what if they did live with you and they were like on your shoulders and they were like poking you, saying, do this, not that, don't do this, okay, do this thing instead. Like, what does that look like? All right, so our first app is this thing called BeeBot. That's what it looks like, really cute. And it's like the Marauders map, but for Airpods. And we're going to tune it in to the pulse of this city. That's what we're trying to build here. And so all you got to do is download this thing, and you put your AirPods in. And when you do that, you hear this.
BeeBot activated.
and then you just walk around. Like, there's no app to fiddle with. There's nothing really to do except kind of consume it. And it's designed to be super light. Like, it's not a walking tour. It's not going to talk to you for 20 minutes. It's not going to tell you about the history of all the meatpacking buildings. It's designed to hit you with like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 things a day, just enough it kind of like enhances your experience, but it doesn't overwhelm you. It's smart, right? It's designed to learn from the places you take it and who you hang out with and what you do and what you tell it. And it's fun, right? It's, I feel like so much of the stuff we use on our phones now, like it sucks the energy out of you, and I'd love to see stuff that like energized you to go out and explore again. I think that's the real fun stuff. Also, it's always on, right? You don't have to turn it on and off. Like, you put your AirPods in, turns on. You take your AirPods out, it turns off. You don't have to remember to use it. It's just kind of on. And because of that, we're pretty mindful about what are we going to do if there's other stuff happening. We won't interrupt your phone call or video call. If you're listening to music, we'll lower it, and then we'll say our 1 sentence or 2 sentences, then we'll raise it back up, and we'll pause and unpause your podcast if you're listening to one. So let's take it on a virtual walk for a second. Here's me walking down the street in the West Village. First, I'm going to hear
BeeBot activated.
And then the next thing I'm going to hear, this is like as soon as I put this on in the morning, is I hear this thing called the mini pod, which is like our 1 or 2 sentence podcast about what's happening in your city or what's happening in your neighborhood. And right now everyone's hearing the same thing, but eventually this will be tailored.
BeeBotters, one of the best movies of all time. Mean Girls is playing in Brooklyn Bridge Park tonight. Lawn opens 5 p.m. and movie starts 8 p.m. Let's make fetch happen.
And so, it's like one thing that's happening you might want to take advantage of. Raise your awareness of what's happening. As you're walking around, we use AI and a bunch of other APIs to try to figure out, are there things here you might want to know about, and what are those things?
On the east side of Fifth Avenue, the AI says, cha-cha matcha. Sip on their famous matcha soft serve, the perfect sweet and refreshing treat.
We've kind of tapped into a bunch of content from different partners, so we can listen to that.
Spring Cafe at 153 Center Street made the New York Times 57 sandwiches list for their vegan BBQ pork bow bun.
And then users can also go and leave their own messages at places, which is kind of cool.
Dennis said Lincoln Market has the most insane egg selection I have ever seen. Like 20 different indie, free-range, uncaged, fancy-ass egg brands.
And if you go to this market, which is on 6th and 13th, you will see this incredible selection. And so how does that content get created? Like yes, you open the app, you have to type it in. But we're also working on ways that you can do it without really using your phone. So I can say, hey BeeBot, I'm at Betaworks, it's demo day, there's a killer cheese plate here. And that's it. You won't see it here, you'll see it up here, where I kind of faked it. But hey, it repeats what's going on, it kind of puts it in its memory of like, this is what's happening in the city, I will tell people as stuff is happening. So we're kind of aggregating this content and then rebroadcasting it back out. Let's do another quick walk.
BeeBot activated.
And then, right after that, I'm going to hear, hey, who else is with us? What's going on nearby?
7 other people online. Your snippets were heard 4 times yesterday.
If Max is around the coffee shop
You
on
are
the
passing
corner.
by Cobrick Coffee Company on the east side of 9th Avenue. Max was here 46 minutes ago.
And then if I heard that Max is here, Max would hear.
Dennis is nearby.
And then it plays this walkout clip, which is music that you upload just to make it like a little more weird. And so, the vision is like you're walking by the street and it's like, oh, what's up, John? Like I hear his song, someone's coming this way, they're hearing my stuff. You just ambient awareness of strangers on the street. And of course, I can tell BeeBot what I'm into and it will tell me where to find it.
Because you said you like crab rangoon. Bar 6 offers a cozy atmosphere and diverse menu. Try their flavorful crab rangoon for a delightful appetizer.
So we got to figure out, okay, what are the nouns that people like, and how do we tell them about those things? So I can say, hey BeeBot, keep an eye on Pac-Man machines and whiskey old fashions, and let me know when they're nearby.
Because you said you like Pac-Man. Check out Fat Buddha for a chill spot in East Village. Because you said you like old-fashioned. With a cozy ambiance and expert mixologists, The Lively offers a delightful old-fashioned that will satisfy any connoisseur.
All right, so we've got a ton of content that's scattered around the city. And the goal is, like, as you're walking around, you're hearing and learning about things that you might be interested in. This is the meatpacking district. It's a look at, like, what we have. That's Betaworks with my little hand up over there. The trick for us is not finding the content, it's filtering it down, right? Like, I could whisper things to you all day long. No one wants that. People told us they don't want that. And so it's like, how do you get the 1 or 2 things a day that make it feel kind of magical, that feels like it's talking just to you. And so, as you're walking, we're basically projecting this cone ahead. We're looking for things. We're trying to find stuff that fits with your nouns and your personality, everything we've kind of learned from you. Max has built this rather ingenious system called the validator that, like, anytime we find something, it runs it through a bunch of AI models and figures out, hey, is this something that is interesting? Is it true? Like, should we bother the person with this by whispering it to him? Sometimes you get stuff that really hits, like, yeah, ramen place I haven't been to before, let me hear about it. Sometimes not so much, like I got a ping as I was walking by the Louis Vuitton store. The validator comes back and says, this user has no interest in shoes or fashion, which is kind of a sick burn. But like we're starting to get very smart about what we can and cannot do. This content is spread everywhere. It's about 150 people that are using this thing. About 10,000 snippets have been heard. A lot of it's AI generated. We gave it to people in New York and they escaped. And they're now in different parts of the world. And it kind of works there too, which is kind of good to see and very hopeful for where we'll be able to bring this. Hello from up on the stage. I took this picture earlier. Another thing we're working on is your ability to just kind of like read the room as you walk into a place. So I might walk into a venue, put my AirPods on, and hear.
BeeBot activated.
You're at Betaworks. 8 other BeeBotters are also here, including Max, AJ, Jordan, and John. It's demo day, and don't miss the free cheese plate.
So taking the knowledge it picked up before from someone random on the street and recycling it back. And so I think that's the opportunity to kind of build that system. And so what's that system look like? I think it's a mix of like old school Twitter, like Twitter before Twitter became Twitter, where it's just people talking about what's happening. Like a mix of old school Foursquare, which is just people doing stuff at places. A mix of the utility of Waze, like instead of driving, more for walking, like there's stuff happening, what do I need to know about? And then a little bit of like every magazine or newspaper article or blog post or newsletter or whatever or city guide that's ever been made, all that stuff already been scraped. And so like, let's put all that stuff to work and see if we can tailor it up and get it pushed to you. How do we want it to feel? It should feel like a bit like pop-up video, if anyone's old enough to get this reference. Or if you've ever played a video game that has like a radio station built into it, and the radio station has a DJ or an MC that's like telling you about what's going on in world, like that's the vibe that we're going for. That, and then like a mix of like the Spotify DJ, which is like, it has all your music, it kind of knows what you've done, and it's just like, carrying you through this experience. So I think if you mash all that stuff up together with this vision of the map and then make it executable on, software for Airpods, like you got something that's kind of magic, and that's what we're going for. We're in private beta, but you can play with it eventually when you get on our wait list, so you can shoot this and get on there. We are this close to finalizing our seed round. I had all the logos up there, I blocked them out. And ask from everyone here is like, yeah, sign up for the wait list. We'd love to get some feedback. We're looking for content creators, people that go around and basically like be little mini micro bloggers about their neighborhood. And we're going to be hiring and building this thing out. So thank you very much for listening.